The gunshot that shattered the evening silence in Dodge City, Kansas, in the summer of 1878 was meant for the man who owned her. But it was the stranger's hand that pulled her from the crossfire and into the alleyway between the saloon and the general store. Evangeline Marsh had stopped flinching at violence years ago, but something about the way this cowboy's fingers wrapped protectively around her wrist made her heart hammer harder than the danger itself ever could. His eyes were the color of winter sky, pale blue and startling against sun-darkened skin, and when he released her and tipped his hat, she saw something she had not seen directed at her in 5 long years: respect. "You all right, miss?" His voice was rough from trail dust but gentle in intention. Evangeline pressed her back against the weathered wood of the building, her green silk dress, gaudy and low-cut as it was, suddenly feeling like a costume that advertised exactly what she had become. Her hands trembled as she smoothed down the fabric, a nervous habit she could not break. "I am unharmed. Thank you for your assistance." The cowboy studied her face for a moment longer than was strictly polite, and Evangeline felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the Kansas summer. He was tall, broad-shouldered in the way of men who worked hard for their living, and there was dust on his boots and chaps that spoke of long miles traveled. A working cowboy then, not one of the gamblers or drifters that usually populated the saloons where she was forced to entertain. "Name's Cole Brennan," he said, and there was a question in his tone even though he had not asked for her name in return. Evangeline. She did not offer her surname. It felt like a lie anyway, a remnant of a life that had been stolen from her when her father's debts had come due, and the creditors had taken everything, including her freedom. That had been in St. Louis, a lifetime ago, when she was 19 and naive enough to believe that the law would protect her. She had learned differently when she was sold to pay those debts, passed from one man's ownership to another's like a piece of property with a price tag. Cole Brennan's eyes flickered to the saloon door where the commotion was still ongoing. "You work for Jack Harper?" The question was carefully neutral, but Evangeline heard the distaste underneath it. Jack Harper owned the Silver Spur Saloon and everyone in it, including her. He had purchased her contract 6 months ago from a man in Abilene, and before that, she had belonged to someone in Wichita, and before that, a gambling house owner in Kansas City. 5 years of being traded, sold, passed around like currency between men who saw her as nothing more than an investment that could turn a profit. "I do not have much choice in the matter," Evangeline said quietly, and she hated how defeated she sounded even to her own ears. Something shifted in Cole's expression, a hardening around his jaw that suggested anger but not at her. "That is not right. Right or wrong does not seem to matter much in my situation, Mr. Brennan." Evangeline straightened her spine, trying to reclaim some dignity. "I should return inside before I am missed. Wait." Cole stepped closer, and Evangeline caught the scent of leather and horse and open plains, so different from the stale whiskey and cigar smoke that permeated her daily existence. "If you needed help, if there was a way out, would you take it?" Evangeline's breath caught in her throat. She had learned not to hope, not to dream of escape, because those dreams only made the reality more crushing. But something in Cole Brennan's face made her want to believe again, even though every bit of hard-won wisdom told her that believing was dangerous. "There is no way out," she whispered. "Jack Harper owns my contract. It is legal and binding. I owe him 2 more years of service to work off what he paid for me, and even if I could run, he would find me. Men like him always do." Cole's hand moved to his belt, not to the gun that hung at his hip, but to a worn leather pouch that hung beside it. "How much does he claim you owe?" $1,500. The sum was astronomical, more money than Evangeline could have earned in a decade of honest work, even if such work had been available to a woman with her reputation. But it does not matter. He adds interest and fees every month. The debt only grows. "That is slavery dressed up in legal paperwork," Cole said flatly. "And it is wrong." Before Evangeline could respond, the saloon door burst open and Jack Harper himself emerged, his face flushed with drink and anger. He was a thick-set man with mean eyes and hands that had left bruises on Evangeline more times than she could count. When he saw her in the alley with Cole, his expression turned thunderous. "Get inside, girl," he snarled. "You do not get paid to chat with broke cowboys in alleyways." Evangeline moved automatically, years of conditioning making her obey without thought, but Cole's hand shot out and caught her wrist again, holding her in place with surprising gentleness. "The lady and I were having a conversation," Cole said, and his voice had gone cold as creek water in January. Harper's laugh was ugly. "Lady, that is rich. She is no lady, cowboy. She is property and she is mine. Now let her go before I have the sheriff throw you in jail for theft." "You cannot steal a person," Cole said, "because people are not property. The law says different." Harper's hand moved toward the pistol at his belt. "And I have got the paperwork to prove she belongs to me." Evangeline felt her heart sink. This was going to end badly, and probably with Cole Brennan dead in the dirt, and all because he had made the mistake of showing her kindness. She pulled her wrist free from his grip and moved toward Harper, trying to defuse the situation before it turned lethal. "I am coming, Mr. Harper. There is no need for trouble." But Cole stepped between her and Harper, his body a wall of protection. "Name your price." Harper's eyes narrowed with calculation. "What? Her contract? How much to buy it from you right now?" Evangeline's head spun. Was this stranger truly offering to purchase her freedom? Or was he just offering to become her new owner? The distinction mattered, even if the outcome looked the same. Harper laughed again, but there was a greedy light in his eyes now. "You do not look like you have got that kind of money, drifter." "I have got a ranch," Cole said. 300 head of cattle, good grazing land along the Cimarron River, and a house that is paid for free and clear. I just sold my herd in Dodge and I have got the money to prove it. So name your price, and we will go to the lawyer right now and draw up the papers." $2,000, Harper said immediately, inflating the price by 500. "And that is a bargain considering how much she brings in on a good night." Evangeline wanted to protest, to tell Cole not to waste his money, that she was not worth bankrupting himself over. But the words stuck in her throat because part of her, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be free, wanted him to say yes. Wanted it so desperately that it hurt. Cole did not hesitate. "Done. We will go to the lawyer now and make it official." The transaction took less than an hour. The lawyer, a thin man named Bartholomew Price, drew up the papers transferring Evangeline's contract from Jack Harper to Cole Brennan. Cole counted out the money from his earnings, bills that represented months of hard work and careful saving, and handed them over without a flicker of regret. When the papers were signed and witnessed, Harper left with a satisfied smirk, and the lawyer departed shortly after, leaving Evangeline alone with Cole in the small office. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Evangeline stared at the papers on the desk, her name written there in black ink along with a price, and felt something inside her crack open. All the years of being traded, sold, passed around like currency from one owner to the next. All the degradation and helplessness came crashing down on her at once. "I have been passed around like currency," she wept, the words torn from somewhere deep inside her, and she could not stop the tears that followed. 5 years of not crying, of holding herself together through sheer force of will, and now she broke apart in front of this stranger who had just spent his fortune on her. Cole moved to her side immediately, but he did not touch her, did not try to force comfort on her. Instead, he knelt down so they were at eye level, and when he spoke, his voice was firm and clear. "Your value is beyond measure, Evangeline. What those men did, treating you like property, putting a price on you as if you were a horse or a piece of land, that does not define your worth. You are a person with dignity and rights and a future that belongs to you alone." Evangeline looked up at him through her tears, searching his face for deception, for the catch that she knew had to be coming. "What do you want from me? Why did you do this?" "I want you to be free," Cole said simply. "My mother was sold to pay her father's debts when she was your age. She died before she could ever work her way out from under that contract. I swore then that if I ever had the means, I would not let another woman suffer that fate. So this is charity." Evangeline did not know why that stung, but it did. "No." Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out the contract papers. Then, deliberately, he tore them in half. "This is justice. You do not belong to anyone, Evangeline, not to Harper and not to me. You are free." Evangeline stared at the torn papers, unable to process what she was seeing. "I do not understand. You spent $2,000. Money I earned and money I chose to spend how I saw fit," Cole replied. "And I cannot think of a better use for it than giving another person their freedom." "But what am I supposed to do now?" The question came out plaintive, frightened. Evangeline had not been free to make her own choices in so long that the prospect was terrifying. "I have no money, no family, nowhere to go." Cole stood and offered her his hand. "I have got a ranch that needs a lot of work. The house needs a woman's touch, and I could use help with the cooking and the garden if you were willing. I would pay you fair wages, and you would have your own room and your privacy respected, but only if you want to. If you would rather I take you somewhere else, to family or friends, I will do that instead." Evangeline looked at his outstretched hand, calloused and strong and steady. She thought about her options, which were limited at best. She could try to make her own way in Dodge City, but everyone knew what she had been, and that reputation would follow her. She could try to go back to St. Louis, but there was nothing left for her there except bad memories. Or she could take a chance on this cowboy with the kind eyes who had just given her something no one else had in 5 years, a choice. She placed her hand in his. "I will come to your ranch, Mr. Brennan, and I will earn my keep honestly." "Cole," he corrected gently. "And I have got no doubt you will." They left Dodge City the next morning, riding out before dawn on 2 horses Cole purchased with what was left of his money. Evangeline rode astride in a split skirt and simple blouse that Cole had bought for her from the general store, and the feeling of wearing practical clothing again after years in silk and satin was almost as liberating as the torn contract papers. The sky was painted pink and gold with sunrise, and the prairie stretched out before them endless and beautiful. Cole's ranch was a 2-day ride south and west, following the Arkansas River down into Indian Territory before cutting across to where the Cimarron River wound through grazing land. They rode in comfortable silence for the most part, stopping to water the horses and rest in the shade during the hottest part of the afternoon. Cole was respectful and careful, always giving Evangeline privacy when she needed it and never pressing her with questions about her past. On the second night, they made camp under a sky so full of stars that Evangeline felt dizzy looking up at them. Cole built a fire and cooked beans and bacon in a pan, and they ate sitting on their bedrolls with the firelight dancing between them. The night was warm and the air smelled of sage and grass, and for the first time in years, Evangeline felt something like peace. "Can I ask you something?" She broke the silence tentatively. Cole looked up from his plate. "Of course. Why were you in Dodge?" "You said you sold your cattle, but most ranchers celebrate after a successful drive. You were alone." A shadow crossed Cole's face. "I was supposed to get married this spring. Had a girl back home, Sarah Me Jenkins, and we had been courting for near about 2 years. But when I asked her father for permission to marry, he said no. Said I was not successful enough, did not have enough money saved. Told me to come back when I had proven I could provide properly." "That must have hurt," Evangeline said softly. Cole shrugged, but she could see the pain underneath the gesture. "I thought the cattle drive would give me the money I needed to prove myself. But when I got back to Dodge and sent word to Sarah Me, she wrote back saying she had accepted a proposal from Thomas Cartwright, the banker's son. Said she could not wait forever for me to make my fortune. I am sorry." "I am not," Cole said, and he sounded like he meant it. "If she could not see my worth beyond what money I had, then she was not the right woman for me, and if I had married her, I would not have been in Dodge City yesterday." Would not have met you. Evangeline felt heat rise to her face and she looked down at her plate. You do not know me, Cole. You do not know what I have done, what I have been forced to do. I know you are brave, Cole said. I know you survived 5 years of something that would have broken most people. I know you are still kind, even after everything, because I heard the way you spoke to the stable boy this morning when we got the horses, asking after his mother who is sick. That tells me more about who you are than anything those men forced you to do. Tears pricked at Evangeline's eyes again, but they were different tears this time, softer somehow. I do not know how to be normal anymore, how to be just a person and not property. Then we will figure it out together, Cole said. One day at a time. They reached the ranch the following afternoon, and Evangeline's first sight of it made her breath catch. It was not grand or imposing, just a simple wooden house with a porch that wrapped around 2 sides and a barn that needed a fresh coat of paint. But it sat on a gentle rise overlooking the Cimarron River, with cottonwood trees providing shade and green grass stretching out in all directions. There was a garden plot that was overgrown with weeds, and a chicken coop that stood empty, and a corral where several horses watched their approach with curious eyes. It is not much, Cole said, and there was uncertainty in his voice as if he worried she would be disappointed. It is beautiful, Evangeline said honestly. It looks like home. The inside of the house was dusty but solid, with a large main room that served as kitchen and living space, 2 bedrooms, and a loft overhead. The furniture was simple and handmade, and there were cobwebs in the corners and a layer of dust over everything that spoke of a house that had not had a woman's care in some time. My mother's things are still in the smaller bedroom, Cole said, gesturing to one of the doors. I have been using the larger room, but you should have it. It has more light and a better view of the river. I cannot take your room, Evangeline protested. I insist. A lady deserves the best room in the house. Cole's tone brooked no argument. I will move my things to the other bedroom this evening. Over the following weeks, Evangeline threw herself into making the house a home. She scrubbed and cleaned and organized, beating the dust from the curtains and polishing the windows until they gleamed. She planted a vegetable garden with seeds Cole bought from the nearest town, a small settlement called Cimarron Springs that was a half-day's ride north. She learned to cook over the wood stove, getting better with each attempt, and she mended Cole's worn shirts and socks while he worked with the cattle and horses. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in the saloons, but it was honest work, and that made all the difference. Her hands, soft from years of indoor life, developed calluses. Her skin, pale from lack of sun, took on a healthy glow. And slowly, day by day, she began to feel like a person again instead of a possession. Cole was patient and kind, always respectful of her space and her boundaries. He never came into her room without knocking, never touched her without permission, never made demands or assumptions. They fell into an easy routine, working together during the day and sitting on the porch in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing as the sun set over the prairie. Evangeline found herself looking forward to those evening conversations more than she wanted to admit. Cole had a way of listening that made her feel heard, truly heard, for the first time in her life. He asked her about her childhood in St. Louis, about her mother who had died when she was young and her father who had loved her but loved gambling more. He asked about her dreams, the ones she had buried so deep she had almost forgotten they existed. I wanted to be a teacher, she admitted one evening, watching the stars come out one by one. I loved books and learning, and I thought I could make a difference in children's lives, but that was before everything fell apart. It is not too late, Cole said. Cimarron Springs does not have a school yet. They have been talking about building one, and they will need a teacher when they do. They would never hire someone like me, Evangeline said bitterly. Not with my past. Your past is not who you are, Cole replied. And anyone who cannot see that does not deserve to know you. As summer turned to fall, Evangeline realized that what she felt for Cole had grown beyond gratitude or friendship. She loved the way he laughed, rare but genuine, when she told stories about the chickens she had purchased and named after famous historical figures. She loved the way he always brought her wildflowers when he rode back from checking the herd, claiming he just happened to see them and thought she might like them. She loved the careful way he had built her a bookshelf in her room, spending his evenings after work planing the wood smooth and fitting the pieces together perfectly because he knew how much she missed having books to read. She loved him, and that realization was as terrifying as it was wonderful. Because Evangeline did not know how to love someone without the transaction of payment, without the understanding that affection was something bought and sold. She did not know if what she felt was real or just another form of dependence, trading one kind of servitude for another. And more than that, she did not know if Cole could ever see her as anything other than a woman he had rescued, a charity case he was helping out of the goodness of his heart. The question was answered on a cool October evening when the cottonwood trees had turned gold and the air smelled of coming winter. They were sitting on the porch as usual, and Evangeline was mending one of Cole's shirts by lamplight. She had become adept at needlework, finding it soothing in a way that was different from the forced entertainment of the saloons. Cole was whittling a piece of wood, shaping it into something that might have been a bird or might have been abstract art. It was hard to tell. "Evangeline," he said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I need to tell you something, and I want you to know that nothing has to change between us if you do not want it to. You are still free, still your own person, no matter what I say." Evangeline's hands stilled on the fabric, her heart beginning to pound. "What is it?" Cole set down his whittling and turned to face her fully. "I love you. I have loved you since the day I met you in that alley in Dodge City, when you straightened your spine and held your head high even though you were frightened. I have loved you every day since, watching you bloom like a flower finally getting enough sun and water. You are the strongest, kindest, most beautiful woman I have ever known, and I would be honored beyond measure if you would consider letting me court you properly." Evangeline's breath caught in her throat. "You love me, even knowing what I was, what I did." "You were never what they tried to make you," Cole said fiercely. "You survived, you endured. But that was not who you were, and it certainly is not who you are now. I love you, Evangeline Marsh. I love your sharp mind and your gentle heart and the way you sing when you think no one is listening. I love that you named the chickens after Julius Caesar and Cleopatra and Alexander the Great. I love the way you look at the prairie like it is the most beautiful painting ever created. I love everything about you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you are worthy of love, real love, the kind that does not come with conditions or prices." Tears were streaming down Evangeline's face, but she was smiling through them. "I love you too, Cole Brennan. I have been so afraid to admit it, afraid that I did not know how to love someone properly, that I was too broken to be worth loving. But you make me want to try. You make me believe that I can be whole again." Cole crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. "You were never broken, Evangeline. You were bent, maybe, by the weight of what you carried. But you are strong and you are here and you are perfect exactly as you are." When he kissed her, it was nothing like the kisses she had been forced to endure in her past life. This was gentle and reverent, a question and an answer all at once. Evangeline felt something inside her shift and settle, a piece of herself she had not realized was missing clicking into place. She wrapped her arms around Cole's neck and kissed him back with all the love and hope and joy that was rising up inside her like a flood. They courted properly after that, even though they lived under the same roof. Cole would ask permission before holding her hand, would court her with small gifts and thoughtful gestures. He brought her books from Cimarron Springs, whatever the general store had in stock or could order from back east. He taught her to ride better, spending patient hours helping her learn to handle her horse with confidence. He told her stories about growing up on the ranch, about his mother who had been so strong and his father who had loved her with a devotion that never wavered. In December, when the first snow dusted the prairie, Cole asked Evangeline to marry him. He did it without a ring, because he had spent all his money buying her freedom, but he promised her that he would love her and honor her and cherish her every day for the rest of their lives. Evangeline said yes without hesitation, and they were married in Cimarron Springs by the circuit preacher on Christmas Eve. The town had been skeptical of her at first, rumors of her past having reached even this small settlement. But Cole stood beside her with such pride and devotion that slowly, gradually, people began to see her for who she was rather than what she had been. It helped that she was kind and hardworking, that she volunteered to help the sick and elderly, that she never put on airs or pretended to be anything other than a woman building a new life. When the town council finally voted to build a schoolhouse in the spring of 1879, they asked Evangeline if she would be willing to serve as the teacher. She accepted with tears of joy, and Cole built her a beautiful oak desk as a wedding gift, telling her that he had never been prouder of anyone in his entire life. Their first year of marriage was not easy. There were hard days when the weight of Evangeline's past pressed down on her, when memories she could not control surfaced and left her shaking. Cole was always there during those times, holding her when she needed to be held and giving her space when she needed to be alone. He never judged her, never made her feel ashamed, and slowly the bad days became fewer and farther between. There were also hard days when the ranch struggled, when drought threatened the grass, or when cattle got sick, or when money was tight. But they faced those challenges together, working side by side to build the life they both wanted. Evangeline proved to have a good head for figures, managing the ranch accounts and finding ways to save money without sacrificing quality. Cole proved to be an excellent teacher, patient and thorough. Whether he was teaching Evangeline about cattle ranching or helping the neighboring ranchers' children with their reading when they stopped by the schoolhouse. In the fall of 1880, Evangeline realized she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. Joy at the thought of bringing a child into the world with a man she loved, and terror at the thought of what kind of mother she could be after everything she had been through. Cole reassured her constantly, telling her that she would be an amazing mother because she knew what it was like to suffer, and would do everything in her power to make sure their children never felt unloved or unsafe. Their son was born in May of 1881, a healthy baby boy with Cole's blue eyes and Evangeline's dark hair. They named him James, after Cole's father, and Evangeline fell in love all over again, this time with the tiny person who depended on her completely. She was a devoted mother, fierce and protective, determined to give James everything she had never had: security, love, and the freedom to choose his own path. The schoolhouse flourished under Evangeline's care. She taught children of all ages, from 6 to 16, and she poured her heart into making sure each one felt valued and heard. Some of the students came from difficult homes, and Evangeline recognized in their eyes the same lost look she had once seen in her own. She made sure those children knew they had a safe place at school, that they were more than their circumstances. Cole expanded the ranch over the years, buying more land and building up the herd. He hired hands to help with the work, good men who respected Evangeline and treated her like the lady of the house, rather than the woman from the saloon. The ranch became known for its quality cattle and for the kindness of its owners, and people came from miles around seeking Cole's advice on animal husbandry and Evangeline's help with education. In 1883, they had a daughter they named Rose, after the wildflowers that grew all over the prairie each spring. She had Evangeline's green eyes and a spirit that was entirely her own, fearless and joyful. James was a devoted big brother, protective but not overbearing, and watching her children play together in the yard filled Evangeline with a contentment so deep, it sometimes brought her to tears. Life was good. Not perfect, because no life ever is, but good in all the ways that mattered. Evangeline had moments when she thought about the years she had lost, the innocence that had been stolen from her, and she felt angry at the injustice of it all. The laws that had allowed men to sell her like property, the society that had looked the other way while women were traded and used, the system that valued profit over human dignity, all of it was wrong, and she knew it. But she also knew that she had survived. That she had found her way to this ranch, to this man, to this life that she was building one day at a time. And maybe, in teaching her students and showing them that all people had value regardless of their circumstances, she was helping to create a world where what had happened to her could not happen to anyone else. Cole never forgot what it had cost to bring Evangeline into his life, and he never regretted it. When people asked him about the year he spent all his money on a woman from a saloon, he always said the same thing: "I bought her freedom, not her. And it was the best investment I ever made, because it gave me a life worth living." On their 10th wedding anniversary, in December of 1889, Cole surprised Evangeline with a ring. It was not a fancy diamond, because they still lived modestly and saved what they could, but it was a beautiful silver band with 3 small stones: a sapphire for James, an emerald for Rose, and a ruby for Evangeline herself. "It is not much," Cole said as he slipped it onto her finger. "But I wanted you to have something that showed the world you are mine and I am yours." Evangeline looked at the ring, then at her husband, and felt her heart overflow with love. "It is perfect. Everything about our life together is perfect. Even the hard parts?" Cole asked with a smile. "Especially the hard parts," Evangeline replied, "because they taught us that we are stronger together than we ever could be apart." They stood on the porch of their home, looking out over the land they had built together, and Evangeline thought about the girl she had been in that alley in Dodge City 11 years earlier. That girl had been frightened and hopeless, convinced that her life would never be anything more than servitude and pain. She had believed that she was nothing more than currency to be traded, a commodity without value beyond what someone was willing to pay. But Cole had seen something different. He had seen a person worthy of dignity and respect, a woman with strength and courage and so much potential. He had given her freedom, and in doing so, he had given her the chance to discover who she really was beneath all the trauma and fear. And who she really was, as it turned out, was someone capable of building a beautiful life. Someone who could love and be loved in return. Someone whose value truly was beyond measure, not because of any price tag or transaction, but because she was herself, unique and irreplaceable. James came running out of the house, chasing a laughing Rose, and Cole scooped them both up, one in each arm, as they shrieked with delight. Evangeline watched her family, her heart so full it felt like it might burst, and she sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for the gunshot that had brought Cole Brennan into her life. Because sometimes, she thought, redemption comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes, love finds you when you have stopped believing in it. And sometimes, the life you build after surviving the unthinkable is even more beautiful because you know exactly how precious it is. The years continued to pass in a blur of seasons and celebrations. James grew tall and strong, inheriting his father's work ethic and his mother's love of learning. He helped on the ranch after school, learning everything Cole could teach him about managing cattle and caring for the land. Rose was bright and curious, always asking questions and wanting to understand how everything worked. She spent hours at her mother's side, both at home and at the schoolhouse, and Evangeline knew her daughter would grow up to be a teacher herself someday. In 1892, the town of Cimarron Springs had grown large enough to warrant a permanent church and a proper town hall. Cole was elected to the town council, a position he took seriously because he believed in building a community where everyone was treated fairly regardless of their past or their circumstances. Evangeline served on the school board, advocating for better resources and more inclusive policies. Together, they became pillars of the community, respected not because they pretended to be perfect, but because they were honest about their struggles and generous with their help. When families fell on hard times, it was often Cole and Evangeline who showed up with food or money or just a listening ear. When the town needed something built or organized, they were among the first to volunteer. One afternoon in late summer of 1894, a young woman arrived in Cimarron Springs on the afternoon stage. She was thin and worn, with haunted eyes and clothing that suggested she was running from something. Evangeline saw her standing alone outside the general store, looking lost and frightened, and she recognized that look because she had worn it herself 16 years earlier. She approached the woman gently, the way you might approach a scared animal. "Hello, my name is Evangeline Brennan." "Are you new to town?" The woman flinched at the sound of her voice, then seemed to force herself to relax. "Yes, ma'am, I just arrived. I am looking for work, any kind of honest work." "What is your name?" Evangeline asked softly. Lily Carson." Evangeline studied the girl, noting the way she held herself, the defensive set of her shoulders, the quick darting glances as if she expected danger from every direction. She knew those signs because she had exhibited them herself for years after leaving Dodge City. "Lily, have you eaten today?" The girl's stomach growled as if in answer, and she flushed with embarrassment. "Not yet, ma'am, but I will be fine." "Nonsense, come with me. We will get you something to eat, and then we can talk about what kind of work you are looking for." Evangeline held out her hand, an echo of the gesture Cole had made to her so many years ago. Lily looked at the offered hand with suspicion. "Why are you being kind to me? You do not know anything about me." "I know you are hungry and far from home and probably scared," Evangeline said. "That is enough." They went to the small restaurant attached to the hotel, and Evangeline ordered Lily a full meal, watching as the girl ate with the desperate hunger of someone who had not had regular meals in some time. As Lily ate, Evangeline asked gentle questions and listened to the story that emerged. Lily had been working in a dance hall in Oklahoma City, not quite a saloon, but not entirely respectable either. She had been trying to save money to escape when her employer, a man named McCready, had decided she owed him money for room and board. He had drawn up papers claiming she was indentured to him, and when Lily had refused to sign them, he had threatened to have her arrested for theft. She had run, taking nothing but the clothes on her back and the few dollars she had managed to save. It was a story Evangeline knew all too well, with only the details changed. The same exploitation, the same abuse of power, the same trap that caught vulnerable women and refused to let them go. "You are safe here," Evangeline told Lily firmly when the girl had finished her story. "McCready has no power in Cimarron Springs, and even if he comes looking for you, he will find that the law here does not look kindly on men who try to enslave women." "But I have no money, no way to pay you back for this meal or for any help you give me," Lily said desperately. "And I have nowhere to go." "You can come work for me," Evangeline said. "I need help at the schoolhouse, someone to clean and maintain the building and help with the younger children. The pay is not much, but it comes with room and board at our ranch until you get on your feet, and when you are ready, we will help you find your own place and your own path." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because someone once did it for me," Evangeline said simply. "And because no woman should have to live in fear of being treated like property." Lily came to work at the schoolhouse and live at the ranch, taking the small room off the kitchen that had once been used for storage. She was quiet and hardworking, grateful for the chance to build a new life. James and Rose took to her immediately, and Cole treated her with the same respectful kindness he showed everyone. Over time, Lily began to heal, the haunted look fading from her eyes as she realized she really was safe. She proved to be wonderful with children, patient and creative, and Evangeline began training her to be an assistant teacher. When the town built a second schoolhouse 2 years later to accommodate the growing population, Lily was hired as its teacher, and she flourished in the role. Watching Lily thrive gave Evangeline a sense of purpose that went beyond her own happiness. She realized that her past, as painful as it had given her unique insight into the struggles of women who were trapped and exploited. She began quietly helping other women who came through Cimarron Springs, offering them work or resources or just a sympathetic ear. Cole supported her completely, even when it meant financial sacrifice, because he understood that this was part of who Evangeline was and why he loved her. In 1897, when Evangeline was 41 years old and had been free for 19 years, she was approached by a women's rights organization based in Kansas City. They had heard about her work helping exploited women and wanted her to speak at a conference about her experiences. The idea terrified Evangeline, making her past public in a way she had carefully avoided all these years, but it also offered the chance to help more women than she ever could on her own. She discussed it with Cole late into the night, weighing the risks and benefits. "If I do this, everyone will know," she said. "Not just Cimarron Springs, but everywhere. The children I teach, their parents, everyone will know what I was." "They will know what was done to you," Cole corrected. "And they will know how you survived it and built something beautiful from the ashes." "Evangeline, you are not defined by what those men did to you. You are defined by what you chose to do after you were free." "What if they judge me? What if they decide I am not fit to teach their children?" Cole took her hands in his. "Then they are fools who do not deserve you." "But I do not think that will happen. I think people will hear your story and see your strength and be inspired by it. And even if some people judge you, think about all the women who will hear your words and realize they are not alone." Evangeline went to Kansas City and spoke at the conference. Her speech was simple and honest, telling her story without embellishment or self-pity. She talked about being sold to pay her father's debts, about being passed around like currency from one owner to another, about the day Cole Brennan had stepped between her and Jack Harper and changed her life forever. She talked about the long process of healing, about learning to see herself as a person with value rather than a commodity with a price tag. When she finished speaking, there was a moment of silence, and then the room erupted in applause. Women came up to her afterward, some crying, some angry, all of them moved by her story. Several told her their own stories of exploitation and survival, and Evangeline listened to each one with compassion and understanding. The speech was reported in newspapers across Kansas and into neighboring states. Some of the coverage was sympathetic, praising Evangeline's courage and calling for legal reforms to protect women from indentured servitude and debt bondage. Some of it was judgmental, questioning whether a woman with her past should be teaching children. But most of it was positive, and the overall effect was to bring attention to an issue that had been ignored for too long. When Evangeline returned to Cimarron Springs, she was nervous about the reception she would receive. But the town surprised her. A group of women from the church were waiting at the train station, and they presented her with a bouquet of flowers and a letter signed by over 100 townspeople expressing their support and admiration. The school board held a special meeting to publicly affirm their confidence in her as a teacher. There were a few families who withdrew their children from the school, unwilling to have them taught by a woman with Evangeline's history. But those families were in the minority, and for every child who left, 2 more families made a point of telling Evangeline how much they valued her and how proud they were that she was part of their community. The fight for legal reforms was slow and frustrating, but Evangeline threw herself into it with the same determination she had brought to every other challenge in her life. She wrote letters to politicians, organized petition drives, and spoke at meetings whenever she was invited. Cole stood beside her through all of it, proud of the woman she had become and grateful to be her partner in building a better world. In 1900, Kansas passed a law making it illegal to use debt bondage as a form of indentured servitude, particularly targeting the practice of forcing women into prostitution to pay off fabricated debts. It was a small victory in a much larger war, but it was a victory nonetheless, and Evangeline celebrated it as such. By then, James was 19 and helping to run the ranch full-time. He had grown into a fine man, honest and hardworking, with a sweetheart named Martha who was the daughter of a neighboring rancher. Rose was 16 and had just finished her formal education, but she was already helping her mother at the schoolhouse and talking about becoming a teacher herself. Cole was 51 now, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. But he was still strong and vital, still the same man who had offered Evangeline his hand in that alley in Dodge City and asked for nothing in return. They sat on their porch one evening in late summer, watching the sun set over the prairie they had called home for more than 2 decades. The cottonwood trees rustled in the breeze, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled its lonely song. Evangeline leaned against Cole's shoulder, content in a way that still felt miraculous after all these years. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Spending all your money to buy my freedom, tying your life to mine?" Cole turned to look at her, his blue eyes clear and certain. "Never. Not for a single moment. Evangeline, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life." "I love you too," Evangeline said, the words as true now as they had been the first time she spoke them. "Thank you for seeing my value when I could not see it myself." "Your value is beyond measure," Cole replied, echoing the words he had said to her 22 years earlier. "It always was, and it always will be." They sat together as the stars came out, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that was more beautiful than either of them had ever dreamed possible. And if their story gave hope to other women trapped in situations that seemed hopeless, if it inspired others to see human beings as more than currency or property, then that was a legacy worth leaving. James married Martha in the spring of 1901, and they built a house on the western edge of the ranch property, expanding the operation and carrying on the traditions Cole and Evangeline had established. Their first child, a daughter they named Evangeline in honor of her grandmother, was born in 1902, and holding her granddaughter for the first time made Evangeline weep with joy. Rose became a teacher as she had always planned, taking over the schoolhouse in Cimarron Springs when Evangeline decided to step back and focus on her advocacy work. She was a natural educator, patient and creative, and she brought fresh ideas that built on the foundation her mother had laid. In 1905, Cole and Evangeline celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a party attended by the entire town. People came from miles around to honor the couple who had become symbols of enduring love and quiet heroism. There were speeches and toasts, music and dancing, and through it all, Cole and Evangeline held hands and smiled at each other like newlyweds. 25 years. Evangeline marveled as they danced slowly in the town hall, surrounded by friends and family. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes it feels like yesterday. 25 years of loving you," Cole said, "and I plan on at least 25 more if you will have me." "I will have you for as long as the good Lord allows," Evangeline replied. "And then I will find you in whatever comes after." They grew old together gracefully, their love deepening with each passing year. Cole's hair went fully silver, and Evangeline's dark locks gained threads of white that she wore proudly. They became grandparents several times over as James and Martha had more children, and Rose eventually married a schoolteacher from a neighboring town and started her own family. The ranch prospered under James's management, and the schoolhouse continued to thrive under Rose's leadership. Cimarron Springs grew from a small settlement into a proper town with paved streets and electric lights, and Cole and Evangeline watched the changes with a mixture of nostalgia and satisfaction. In the summer of 1918, as the world was embroiled in a terrible war overseas, Cole and Evangeline sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. Cole was 70 now, his body slower than it had once been, but his mind still sharp. Evangeline was 62, still beautiful in his eyes, still the woman he had fallen in love with in an alley in Dodge City 40 years earlier. "I have been thinking about that day we met," Cole said, taking Evangeline's hand in his. "About how easily things could have gone differently. If I had not been in Dodge City that day, if I had not walked past that alley at exactly that moment, if I had not had the courage to step between you and Harper." "But you were there," Evangeline said, "and you did have the courage. And because of that, I have lived a life beyond anything I could have imagined." "We both have," Cole agreed. "Everything good in my life came from that moment. You, our children, this ranch, the family we built together. All of it started because I saw a woman who needed help and decided to do something about it." "You saved me," Evangeline said simply. "No," Cole corrected gently. "I gave you the chance to save yourself. Everything that came after, every choice you made, every obstacle you overcame, that was all you. I just opened the door. You walked through it." Evangeline thought about that, about the long journey from that frightened woman in the alley to the person she had become. Cole was right in a way. He had given her freedom, but she had been the one to decide what to do with it. She had been the one to choose love over fear, hope over despair, growth over stagnation. And while Cole's initial act of kindness had made it all possible, it was her own strength that had carried her forward. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Inside the house, they could hear their great-grandchildren playing, the newest generation of Brennans carrying on the legacy of love and resilience that Cole and Evangeline had established. "I would do it all again," Cole said suddenly. "Every moment, every choice, every sacrifice, I would do it all again just to have this life with you." "So would I," Evangeline replied, squeezing his hand. "Even the hard parts, even the pain. It all led me here to you, to this beautiful life we built together." As the stars began to appear overhead, the same stars that had watched over them for 4 decades, Cole and Evangeline sat together on their porch and counted their blessings. They had lived long enough to see their children flourish, their grandchildren grow, and their great-grandchildren begin their own journeys. They had loved each other through good times and bad, through prosperity and hardship, through joy and sorrow. And through it all, one truth had remained constant. Evangeline's value had always been beyond measure, not because of any price paid or any transaction made, but simply because she was herself, irreplaceable and precious. Cole had recognized that truth from the very beginning, and in loving her, he had helped her recognize it too. Their story became legend in Cimarron Springs and the surrounding territory, passed down through generations as an example of what real love looked like. It was a story about courage and sacrifice, about seeing the humanity in others even when society refused to. It was a story about redemption and second chances, about the power of choosing kindness over indifference. But most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple. A story about 2 people who found each other at exactly the right moment and built a life that honored both of them. A story that proved that no matter how dark the past might be, the future could still be bright if you had the courage to reach for it. And when Cole and Evangeline finally left this world, years later and within days of each other, because neither could bear to be without the other for long, they left behind a legacy that extended far beyond their immediate family. They left behind a community that had learned to value all people regardless of their past, a generation of children who had been taught that human beings could never be reduced to currency, and a love story that would be told and retold for as long as anyone remembered the Wild West town of Cimarron Springs. Their grave markers stood side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together, simple stones that bore their names, and a single inscription that said everything that needed to be said. Together forever, their value beyond measure.